Once upon a time, there was a music shop in Scunthorpe. And this music shop was one of those music shops that had a rock and roll section and a folk section. It had a classical section as well, but that's not relevant to the story. And the folk section had all of the folky instruments hanging on the wall. There were sitins, there were fiddles, there were banjos, there were guitars, all the way down the wall. And in the middle of the wall was a beautiful Appalachian or mountain dulcimer. And on the other side of the shop, right down, all the way down that side, were all the rock and roll instruments. There were the Fender jazz basses, and the Squeers, and the Stratocasters, and the Telecasters, and the Les Pauls. And directly opposite the Appalachian dulcimer, there was a Gibson Flying V. And the Appalachian dulcimer used to look across at the Gibson Flying V and go, God, this is so wonderful. Just look at those lovely shiny knobs. And the Gibson Flying V used to look across at the Appalachian dulcimer and go, oh, she's very pretty. Do you think she goes? Nah, she wouldn't go. She's the real thing. She's made out of apple wood. But you never know. And sure enough, as you've guessed, they fell in love. And their passion grew to such a pitch till one night they could contain it no longer. And they climbed down from the walls and they slithered across the floor to where the PA equipment was and the drum kits. And there, underneath the big bass drum, they consummated their passion. But they didn't take precautions. And this... It's actually... it's a Scunthorpe dulcimer because it's made in Scunthorpe, invented by a guy called Hugh Scullion, also known as a long-neck dulcimer. It's basically an Appalachian dulcimer that guitar players can get their heads around. And I'll play you a little tune or two on it. This year's album is a compilation. It's got lots of tracks from Tom and my previous albums. But I put it together because it's got all the Channel Island material together. I suddenly realised, as I haven't got a pension, that my best plan for the future was to produce a record which the tourists would buy. If I packaged it right, it wouldn't matter if it was any good or not. They'd just see it and go, oh, that'll do for Grandma. So I produced a CD called Island Stories, which is all my Channel Island material. But there was a flaw. There was no piece of music relating to Herm, which is the smallest of the publicly inhabited Channel Islands. Anybody been to Herm? Yeah, it's a beautiful place, isn't it? Yeah. It's right. It's in between Guernsey and Sark. It's the sort of epicentre of the Channel Islands. And it's a little paradise. I thought, crikey, I better write a tune for them. So I'll play the tune I wrote, Little Waltz I wrote. Incidentally, some years ago, I took my old band Slide over to the Channel Islands to do a tour. And on the first night, I took them up to the cliffs of Alderney, which is my home when I can get there, I always say. And pointed all the other islands out along the horizon. There's Chaucy over the horizon there, Guernsey that way in Jersey. And named them all dutifully. And at the end of it, Neil, our banjo player, he looked at me and he said, Herm, couldn't they decide what to call that one then? So this is Herm. And I'll also play you a proper traditional dance. It's a polka collected in Sark by Peter Kennedy in the 1950s. It's just called the Sark dance.